Danny Casolaro, a name etched in the annals of investigative journalism, not for the stories he broke, but for the one that broke him. Casolaro wasn't a seasoned reporter chasing Pulitzers. He was a freelancer, a writer drawn to the shadows where secrets whispered. He was on the trail of a story, a labyrinthine conspiracy he called the Octopus. This wasn't just another assignment, it consumed him, pulling him into a vortex of power, corruption, and danger. Casolaro found himself in Martinsburg, West Virginia, a town more familiar with quiet nights than clandestine plots. He wasn't there for the scenery. He believed Martinsburg held a key, a piece of the puzzle that could unlock the secrets of the Octopus. This wasn't a hunch, not anymore. It was an obsession, fueled by cryptic phone calls, hushed meetings, and the growing fear that he was being followed. He was living on a razor's edge, his notes filled with names that could topple empires. The stakes were higher than he ever imagined. Every phone call could be tapped, every shadow a threat. The deeper he dug, the more he realized the truth was a dangerous thing to possess. And in the heart of this storm, he was alone, clinging to the belief that some stories were worth dying for. Casolaro wasn't chasing ghosts. The Octopus was real, a tangled web of conspiracies that stretched from the halls of justice to the Oval Office. At its heart were four interconnected scandals: the Inslaw affair, the October surprise, the BCCI collapse, and the Iran-Contra affair. Each thread, a story of corruption and betrayal, intertwined to form a tapestry of power and deceit. These weren't isolated incidents, they were symptoms of a deeper rot, a system where power brokers operated with impunity. Casolaro believed that a shadowy cabal, the Octopus, pulled the strings, manipulating events from the shadows. They thrived in the darkness, their motives shrouded in secrecy. Their reach was vast, their influence undeniable. Casolaro was convinced that these seemingly disparate events were linked, connected by invisible threads of power and influence. He saw a pattern, a grand scheme orchestrated by unseen forces. He was determined to expose them, to drag the Octopus into the light. But the truth, as he was about to discover, was a dangerous game. The Octopus, as Casolaro envisioned it, was not a single entity but a network of powerful individuals, intelligence operatives and criminals. They operated in the shadows, their actions cloaked in secrecy and deniability. Their motives remained murky, a mix of greed, power, and ideological extremism. Some whispered that the Octopus was a rogue element within the government, operating outside the law to achieve its objectives. Others believed it was a cabal of private individuals driven by profit and a lust for control. The truth, as is often the case, likely lay somewhere in between. What was certain was that the Octopus had its tentacles in many pies. They profited from arms deals, manipulated financial markets, and wielded influence within the highest echelons of power. Casolaro's investigation threatened to expose their secrets, to shine a light on their shadowy dealings. And they would do anything to protect themselves. At the heart of Casolaro's investigation was the Inslaw affair, a legal battle that exposed the dark underbelly of government overreach. Inslaw, a software company, accused the Justice Department of stealing its innovative Promise software, a program designed to track case files. This wasn't just corporate espionage, it was about control, about a government agency allegedly seizing a powerful tool that could be used for surveillance and manipulation. The Justice Department's actions were suspect. Their denials rang hollow, evidence vanished, witnesses recanted their testimonies. The more Casolaro dug, the more he realized that something was rotten at the core of the case. He uncovered a pattern of obstruction and intimidation, suggesting a cover-up that reached the highest levels of government. The Inslaw affair wasn't just about stolen software, it was about abuse of power, about a government agency operating above the law. Casolaro believed that the Promise software had fallen into the wrong hands, potentially used to blackmail officials and manipulate events. The stakes were high, the implications terrifying. October surprise, seeds of doubt. The 1980 presidential election, Ronald Reagan's landslide victory over Jimmy Carter, was not without its controversies. Rumors swirled of a secret deal, a quid pro quo that would rock the very foundations of American democracy. The allegation members of the Reagan campaign had negotiated with Iran to delay the release of American hostages until after the election. This wasn't just political maneuvering, it was treason. The hostages were pawns in a cynical game of power, their freedom sacrificed for political expediency. The implications were staggering. Had a presidential election been decided on a lie? Had the Reagan administration colluded with a foreign power to secure victory? Casolaro was drawn to the October surprise theory, seeing it as another piece of the puzzle. He believed that the same shadowy network that orchestrated the Inslaw cover-up was also involved in the hostage negotiations. The Octopus, he suspected, had manipulated events to install a president who would serve their interests. BCCI's downfall, a house of cards. The Bank of Credit and Commerce International, BCCI, once a financial powerhouse, crumbled under the weight of its own corruption. It was a scandal that shook the world, exposing the dirty secrets of international finance. BCCI wasn't just another bank, it was a money laundering operation, a conduit for drug lords, terrorists, and corrupt officials. The bank's collapse revealed a web of shell companies, secret accounts, and illicit transactions. It was a playground for the powerful, a place where money could buy influence, silence, and impunity. Casolaro believed that BCCI was a financial arm of the Octopus, used to launder money, finance covert operations, and line the pockets of corrupt officials. The BCCI scandal was a stark reminder of the power of money, of how easily legitimate institutions could be corrupted. It showed the dangers of unchecked greed and the devastating consequences of regulatory failure. Casolaro saw it as a symptom of a larger problem, a system rigged in favor of the powerful. Iran-Contra, a tangled web of deception. The Iran-Contra affair, a scandal that rocked the Reagan administration, revealed the shadowy world of covert operations and the dangerous consequences of unchecked power. The United States, despite a public stance against negotiating with terrorists, had secretly sold arms to Iran in exchange for the release of American hostages. The deal was controversial, a violation of international law, and a betrayal of American values. But it was the second part of the operation that truly shocked the nation. The proceeds from the arms sales were illegally funneled to the Contras, a right-wing rebel group fighting the socialist government in Nicaragua. Casolaro saw the Iran-Contra affair as a textbook example of the Octopus's modus operandi. They had manipulated events, bypassed Congress, and broken the law to achieve their objectives. It was a case study in power, corruption, and the erosion of public trust. Section 8. The Fatal Trip. A Shadow over Martinsburg, August 1991. The humid summer air hung heavy over Martinsburg, a stark contrast to the chill that had settled over Casolaro's investigation. He was on edge, his notebooks filled with cryptic notes, his mind racing with connections. He believed he was close, that he was on the verge of uncovering the truth about the Octopus. He checked into room 517 of the Martinsburg Sheraton, a nondescript room in a town that mirrored the quiet desperation of his quest. He was a man on a mission, driven by a thirst for justice and a growing fear that he was running out of time. He made frantic calls, his voice laced with urgency, his words a jumble of names and dates. He was a man possessed, consumed by the story that was both his life's work and his undoing. He spoke of meetings, of sources who promised to deliver the final piece of the puzzle. He was a man teetering on the edge, his obsession a double-edged sword that promised both revelation and ruin. On August 10, 1991, Danny Casolaro was found dead in the bathtub of his hotel room, his wrists slashed multiple times. The scene was chaotic, a macabre tableau that whispered of violence and despair, the official ruling suicide. But for those who knew Casolaro, the verdict didn't ring true. He was a man on the verge of a breakthrough, not someone who would take his own life. The circumstances surrounding his death were suspicious, to say the least. His notes, a treasure trove of leads and connections, were missing. The police investigation was cursory, dismissive of any suggestion of foul play. It was as if someone wanted the case closed quickly, the truth buried beneath a shroud of official indifference. The lack of a thorough investigation only fueled the flames of suspicion. Casolaro's family, friends, and colleagues refused to believe he took his own life. They pointed to his unwavering determination, his belief that he was close to exposing a vast conspiracy. They demanded answers, but their pleas for justice were met with silence. Casolaro's family, devastated by his death, refused to accept the official narrative. They knew Danny, his tenacity, his unwavering belief in his work. Suicide, they argued, was simply not in his character. They pointed to inconsistencies in the police investigation, the missing notes, the lack of a suicide note, as evidence that something was amiss. They embarked on a tireless crusade for justice, determined to uncover the truth about Danny's death. They hired private investigators, pored over documents, and lobbied for a new investigation. They faced roadblocks at every turn, their efforts met with resistance and indifference from the authorities. The family's grief was compounded by the lack of closure, the gnawing suspicion that Danny's death was not what it seemed. They were left with more questions than answers, haunted by the belief that he had been silenced, that he had stumbled upon a truth so dangerous that it cost him his life. The official ruling of suicide was met with skepticism from the start. Too many questions remained unanswered, too many loose ends untied. The police investigation, marred by inconsistencies and a lack of thoroughness, did little to quell the growing suspicion that something was amiss. The missing notes, the lack of a suicide note, the multiple cuts on Casolaro's wrists, all pointed towards a more sinister explanation. Experts weighed in, challenging the official narrative. Forensic pathologists questioned the number and angle of the cuts, suggesting they were inconsistent with self-inflicted wounds. Journalists who had investigated similar cases pointed to the possibility of staged suicides, a common tactic used to silence those who knew too much. The doubts surrounding Casolaro's death refused to fade. The more the case was scrutinized, the more apparent it became that the official story simply didn't add up. The evidence, or lack thereof, pointed towards a cover-up, a deliberate attempt to bury the truth about what happened in room 517 of the Martinsburg Sheraton. Danny Casolaro's death remains a mystery, a stark reminder of the dangers faced by those who dare to challenge the powerful. His story, a testament to the importance of investigative journalism, serves as a cautionary tale about the lengths to which some will go to protect their secrets. The octopus, whether a figment of Casolaro's imagination or a very real entity, continues to cast a long shadow over the case, fueling speculation and conspiracy theories. The lack of a definitive answer only amplifies the tragedy of Casolaro's death. His legacy is one of unanswered questions, of a truth that remains elusive. His case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of a free press, of the need to hold those in power accountable. It is a story about the courage it takes to speak truth to power, and the price that some pay for their convictions. Casolaro's story is a call to action, a reminder that the pursuit of justice is an ongoing struggle. It is a testament to the power of truth and the importance of continuing to ask difficult questions, even when those in power would rather we remain silent. In the end, the greatest tribute we can pay to Danny Casolaro is to continue his work, to shine a light into the darkest corners of power, and to never stop seeking the truth. Subscribe for more tales from the dark side of history.